Lucas is the name that the Portuguese explorers in Southeast Asia used to refer to one of the ethnic groups that occupied the island of Luzon. Around the time of the early 16th century, the Lucas are written in the documents of Fernão Mendes Pinto, Tomé Pires, and Antonio Pigafetta, the Italian scholar who chronicled the journey of Ferdinand Magellan and published it in 1524. Portuguese-Philippines. Pires noted that they were mostly heathen, and were not much esteemed in Malacca at the time he was there, although he also noted that they were strong, industrious, given to useful pursuits. Pires' exploration led him to discover that in their own country, the Lucas had foodstuffs, wax, honey, inferior grade gold, had no king, and were governed instead by a group of elders. They traded with tribes from Borneo and Indonesia, and Philippine historians note that the language of the Lucas was one of the 80 different languages spoken in Malacca when Magellan's ship arrived in the Philippines and East Timor. Pigafetta noted that the were Lucas are collecting sandalwood. The Lucas' activities weren't limited to trade, however. They also had a reputation for being fierce warriors. When the Portuguese arrived in Southeast Asia in 1500 AD, they witnessed the Lucas of the Luções' active involvement in the political and economic affairs of those who sought to take control of the economically strategic highway of the Strait of Malacca. For instance, the former Sultan of Malacca decided to retake his city from the Portuguese with a fleet of ships from Luzon in 1525 AD. Pinto noted that there were a number of them in the Islamic fleets that went to battle with the Portuguese in the Philippines during the 16th century. The Sultan of Aceh gave one of them the task of holding Aru in 1540. Pinto also says one was named leader of the Malays remaining in the Moluccas Islands after the Portuguese conquest in 1511. Pigafetta notes that one of them was in command of the Brunei fleet in 1521. However, the Lucas did not only fight on the side of the Muslims. Pinto says they were also apparently among the natives of the Philippines who fought the Muslims in 1538. On mainland Southeast Asia, Luzon Lucas warriors aided the Burmese king in his invasion of Siam in 1547 AD. At the same time, Luzon warriors fought alongside the Siamese king and faced the same elephant army of the Burmese king in the defense of the Siamese capital at Ayutthaya. Scholars have thus suggested that they could be mercenaries valued by all sides. The Lucas were not only warriors but they were also pioneer seafarers, and it is recorded that the Portuguese were not only witnesses but also direct beneficiaries of Luzon's involvement. Many Lucas, as the Portuguese called the people of Luzon, chose Malacca as the base of operations because of its strategic importance. When the Portuguese finally took the Malacca in 1512 AD, the resident Lucas held important government posts in the former Sultanate. They were also large-scale exporters and ship owners that regularly sent junks to China, Brunei, Sumatra, Siam and Sunda. One Luzon official by the name of Suryudaraja annually sent 175 tons of pepper to China and had to pay the Portuguese 9,000 cruzados in gold to retain his plantation. His ships became part of the first Portuguese fleet that paid an official visit to the Chinese Empire in 1517 AD. The Portuguese were soon relying on the Luzon bureaucrats for the administration of Malacca and on Luzon warriors, ships and pilots for the military and commercial ventures in East Asia. It was through the Lucas who regularly sent ships to China that the Portuguese discovered the ports of Canton in 1514 AD, and it was on Luzon ships that the Portuguese were able to send the first diplomatic mission to China 1517 AD. The Portuguese had the Luções to thank for when they finally established the base at Macau in the mid-1500s. The Luções were also instrumental in guiding Portuguese ships to discover Japan. The Western world first heard of Japan through the Portuguese, but it was through the Luções that the Portuguese had the first encounter with the Japanese. The Portuguese king commissioned his subjects to get good pilots that could guide them beyond the seas of China and Malacca. In 1540 AD, the Portuguese king's factor in Brunei, Ras Bilao, recommended to his king the employment of Luzon pilots because of the reputation as discoverers. Thus it was through Luzon navigators that Portuguese ships found the way to Japan in 1543 AD. In 1547 AD, Jesuit missionary and Catholic St. Francis Xavier encountered his first Japanese convert from Satsuma disembarking from a Luzon ship in Malacca. According to Anthony Reed notes that the Luções people disappeared from descriptions of the archipelago after the Spanish conquest of Manila in 1571. The island of Luzon still bears the name